Alright, in this lesson we're going to use Adobe Illustrator to create a pumpkin. Because it's coming up on Halloween, we're going to create a pumpkin, and what we're going to do when we create a pumpkin is we're going to learn how to do a few things. We're going to learn how to use the gradient tool, we're going to learn how to use our drawing tools with our pen, and so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is open a new document, of course, so we'll go File, and we'll select New. And we're just going to create a new letter size document, normal portrait size document, 8.5 by 11. And I'm just going to go ahead and title this Pumpkin. So we'll start off with that, and once we start we'll say OK, and now we've got our letter size document, but we really can't tell that it's letter size yet, so let's go ahead and put our rulers up. Every single project we do, we want to use the rulers. That way we can make sure that what we're drawing is the correct size. And I always like to zoom out just a little bit, so I'm going to hold down the Command key and then the minus key on the keyboard and zoom out just a little bit. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started drawing. So let's grab our pen tool, and we're just going to do a basic pumpkin here. Nothing spectacular, but this is going to teach us how to draw our shapes and lines and bend curves and add different sort of curves and lines to this pumpkin. So we're going to start out with just some basic lines, and we're going to create these lines. I really don't care how these lines look right now, because I'm going to just keep drawing and adjusting them until I get them to the right shapes and sizes. So I'm using my pen tool, and as I use my pen tool, I've drawn this first shape here. Now I'm going to go ahead and convert these lines and bend them. So I'm going to use the Convert Anchor Point tool, and I'm going to come into these anchor points, and I'm going to select on the anchor point and then click and drag with my mouse on the cursor, and I'm going to select one of these lines to start creating the shape that I want. And of course the pumpkins are round, so we're going to do nice curved lines. You'll notice that the swing arm here that I'm on, as I drag out, it's got an equal arm on the opposite side, and it's connected so they both swing, and I'm only concerned about the line on the side where my cursor is, so I'm just going to get that line to be about how I want. Then I'm going to let go with my cursor, and now I'm going to come back to the right side, select that little handlebar on the end of the swing arm and swing it back in. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same down here on the bottom, right on the cursor with the anchor point, and click and drag, get this out to the way that I want. And I'm really only concerned with the right side here, so I'm going to swing this into the curve I want. If it's not right, that's okay. I'm going to get it the shape I want as I go here, so I'm simply just going to get it close to the shape I want. And again, I'm going to do the same thing here. Now this one I'm just going to drag a little bit, get it started on the bottom, and then I'm going to let go and then drag up here and just get a nice simple curved line. And like I said, I'm really not upset about the curve or disappointed with the curve that I have here, or the shape that I have here. I can correct this as I go, and what I'm really concerned with right now is just getting the other shapes drawn, and then we're going to put all the shapes together, and once I have them all put together, then we can reshape lines to make it look better. So we'll reshape as we go. Alright, let's do another line or another shape for the pumpkin here, and we're just going to keep doing this until we get our basic shapes drawn. We're going to do about 7 of these overall, and so I'm just going to keep working with my pen tool and then my anchor point tool, and I'm just going to keep dragging these out and shaping them the way that I want. And that's all you really have to do. Don't panic if your lines are not perfect here to begin with. All you have to do is just get them close and get them in a general shape that you want. And if they're not perfect, don't panic. We're just going to redraw and redraw and redraw these shapes until they're right. And we don't really have to worry about how much time we're putting into them, because we've got plenty of time to reshape these later. Okay, this is a much better shape than the first one I drew, but we're going to reshape this first one that I drew in just a moment. Alright, let's do a next one. And we're going to get our pen tool, and again we're going to draw another one. Now, why don't we just copy and paste the first one that I did? Well, I want you to practice drawing these shapes, and I want you to practice using the Convert Anchor Point tool. So I want you to draw each one independently, And by doing these shapes independently and not just copying and pasting, you're going to get more practice and you're going to get better using these tools. So we're just going to keep using these tools and draw each shape independently, even if they're the wrong size, even if they don't match up, because we're going to come back later in just a moment when we're finished with each shape. We're going to come back, fit them together, and reshape them so that this looks like a nice shaped pumpkin. Okay, now let's do the middle part of the pumpkin. And so we're going to do, instead of just 4 independently out there, we're going to independent anchor points, we're going to do 4 that are more like an oval. And again, it doesn't matter if these are perfectly drawn shapes here. We're quickly using this to create our pumpkin. And that's how you should draw this. Don't take your time and just use all your time up trying to make the perfect shape for the perfect pumpkin. Pumpkins are irregular shapes. They're lumpy, they're bumpy, they're round. They're not perfect. They're not the same. So if your pumpkin doesn't look like my pumpkin, exactly like my pumpkin, that's fine. You're going to find that everybody's work looks a little bit different. Okay, and there we go. We've got 4 shapes here. Let's go ahead and start to put these together a little bit. So I'm going to select this first pumpkin here. I'm going to move him over, and I'm simply just going to click and drag him over a little bit, the shape, and notice that I'm not concerned with the perfect positioning here. I'm just clicking on the line and dragging it over to my left, and I'm just going to continue to do that with these shapes. And don't panic if they're not lined up right. We're going to bend these lines into the correct shapes and positions as we go. All right, let's go ahead. We've done the left side of the pumpkin and the center piece of the pumpkin. Let's do the right side of the pumpkin. And we're quickly going to draw these, and then we will head off to part 2. This is, of course, part 1. And once we put these together, we'll move into part 2. All right, so we're just going to quickly draw these shapes and wrap this up here so that we can move on to part 2. Again, if you have any questions or you're not sure about something, simply come ask me or email me through School Loop. I'm always available on School Loop. I check my emails all the time. So if you're not sure what you're doing or you're working on something at home and you want to do something quickly, you can always email me. Now notice I'm drawing these in the opposite direction this time. So that's what you're going to do. You're just going to draw these in the opposite direction. And that way we have both sides of the pumpkin fitted together. Okay, and here we go. We're just working around this part of the pumpkin here. Notice the shapes are not perfect. I just can't stress that enough. I don't want my students to worry that the pumpkin's got to be this perfect pumpkin shape. They don't. They're going to be lumpy, they're going to be bumpy, and they're going to be all different shapes and sizes and colors, and that's good because we're all individuals and all of our pumpkins are going to have different shapes. Now notice I'm not drawing on the canvas here in Illustrator. I've gone off the canvas and I'm now working on the desktop. That's fine. You can work anywhere on the desktop. You don't have to work on the canvas. You can work outside that little rectangle, or as we call it, the canvas. Okay, so don't panic if you're working outside that canvas. You're not doing anything wrong. In fact, that's what the desktop is there for, so that you have extra space to work in case you need it. All right, and let's quickly draw these lines and shapes here. And now we're going to move them together. And notice that they're not perfectly aligned. That's fine. They're not in the right order. They're not anywhere near being completed yet. Okay, other than we've completed these shapes. And notice we have layer 1, 2, 3, 4, layer 5, layer 6, 7 layers here, okay? That's the end of part 1, and now you can go to part 2 and see how to finish building these shapes and then how to put in your gradients. Good luck. Again, if you have any questions, email me or come up and see me in class and ask me for some help if you're still a little bit confused or things aren't going the way you planned. All right, good luck.